Persia, 171 BC. A desert dust swallows the great cities of the land. The Seleucids, inheritors of Alexander's might, have shackled the Persian people. Hope itself is buried and forgotten. But from the ashes of this desolation, a figure emerges, the unknown youth Mithridates I. How could this one man bring mighty empires to their knees? Why did the dreaded Parthian cavalry strike terror into the hearts of the Seleucids? Their arrows tore the heavens asunder, their tactics a mystery that paralyzed their foes. A single misstep could mean the end of Persia forever. Are you ready to witness the story of epic battles and the unrevealed secrets of Mithridates? The year is 1630 BC. Dust billows from the deserts of northeastern Persia, kicked up by the hooves of Parthian horses. Mithridates I, the young king of the Parthian tribe, charges westward with his horsemen toward Bactria. This land, once a part of Persian soil, was now under the rule of the Greco-Bactrians, with their stone cities and magnificent temples. Bactria was commanded by Eucratides I, a king who had seized his crown through bloodshed. A few years prior, Eucratides had usurped the Bactrian throne in a coup. He had killed the Bactrian king Demetrius and shattered his army. But this victory plunged Bactria into turmoil. The Sogdians attacked from the north with sharp swords, and the Scythians charged from the east on wild horses. The Greco-Bactrian soldiers, with their bronze armor and long spears, were caught between internal wars and foreign invasions. The markets of Merv, filled with rumors and fear, trembled under the shadow of war. Mithridates, with a strategist's eye, saw this chaos as an opportunity. His Parthian horsemen, equipped with recurve bows and swift horses, moved like the wind across the desert. They wore no heavy armor, carried no large shields, only speed and cunning. The Parthians advanced with their signature tactic, the hit-and-run arrow assault. The horsemen would approach the Bactrian lines, unleash a volley of arrows, and vanish before the Greeks could even draw their swords. This method paralyzed Eucratides' heavy infantry. The Greek soldiers, in their disciplined ranks with interlocked shields, could not catch the swift retreating Parthian riders. The great battle erupted on the plains near Merv. Merv, a city of mud brick walls and bustling markets, was the gateway to Bactria. At a cold dawn, the Parthian horsemen emerged from the morning mist. Their arrows rained down upon the Greek soldiers. Eucratides, in his golden helmet, sent his own cavalry into the fray, but their horses got stuck in the sandy terrain of the plains. The Parthians, with short, sharp daggers, struck from the flanks. Blood soaked the sand, and the Greek lines broke. Merv had fallen to the Parthians. But Mithridates did not stop. His horsemen rode on toward Aria, an ancient Persian region. Aria, with its green hills and old temples, soon fell under the Parthian banner. The Bactrian soldiers, exhausted and scattered, surrendered one by one. Eucratides, with his shattered army, was forced to retreat. The conquest of Bactria, marked by the capture of Merv and Aria, proved that the Parthians were more than just a nomadic tribe. At the age of 25, Mithridates, with his light cavalry and deadly arrows, had brought the Greco-Bactrians to their knees. This victory sent a clear message to the Seleucids, the masters of Persia. Iran was breathing again. The year is 148 BC. The green hills of Media glistened under the sun. Mithridates I, the Parthian king, rode with his horsemen from the east, charging toward the heart of Persia. Media, a land of vast plains and ancient cities, was under the dominion of the Seleucids, the Greek heirs of Alexander. But this land, with the stone palaces of Ecbatana, still kept its Persian soul alive. The Seleucids, once the undisputed masters of Persia, were now on a steep decline. 60 years earlier, at the Battle of Magnesia, their army had been crushed by the Romans. The Treaty of Apamea, which forced the Seleucids to pay heavy tribute to Rome, had emptied their treasury. Media, with its bustling markets and hills full of herds, was slipping from their control. Timarchus, the Seleucid satrap of Media, saw this weakness. Supported by Median warriors, he revolted against the Seleucids and declared himself king. His crown, bearing the emblem of a Persian lion, shone in Ecbatana, but it was a crown of great peril. Mithridates, with his light cavalry, entered Media like a shadow. The Parthians, with their swift horses and recurved bows, were in their element in the rugged hills of Media. Timarchus had gathered a large army of Median soldiers and Greek mercenaries. The bronze armor of his troops gleamed under the sun. But the Parthians needed no heavy formations. They advanced with their signature tactic, the feigned retreat. Their horsemen would approach the enemy lines, rain down a volley of arrows, and vanish into the dust before the Median spears could reach them. This method left Timarchus's army exhausted and scattered. The decisive battle ignited on the plains near Ecbatana. Ecbatana, a city of high walls and stone palaces, was the ancient capital of the Achaemenids. At a blood-red sunset, the Parthian horsemen poured down from the hills. Their arrows, like a relentless storm, struck down the Median soldiers. Timarchus, in his silver helmet, stood his ground in the center of the field, but his cavalry was crushed under the Parthian onslaught. The Median horses, caught in blood and soil, fell to their knees. The Parthians struck from the flanks with their sharp daggers. The enemy lines broke, and Timarchus, his sword shattered, disappeared into the swirling dust. Ecbatana fell to Mithridates. Parthian banners bearing the emblem of the sun were raised upon the city walls. The markets of Ecbatana came alive again, filled with the sounds of Parthian and Median merchants. Mithridates made this ancient city the Parthian summer capital. The surviving soldiers of Timarchus either surrendered or fled to the mountains. Media, the heart of Persia, was Persian once more, after years of Greek rule. This victory sent a tremor through the Seleucid Empire. Engulfed in civil wars in Syria and Babylonia, they were powerless to reclaim Media. By capturing Ecbatana, Mithridates proved that the Parthians were no mere desert tribe. His light cavalry, racing like the wind through the hills of Media, sent a clear message to the Seleucids. Persia was reclaiming its power. The year is 1401 BC. The hot plains of Mesopotamia trembled under the feet of the Parthian horsemen. Mithridates I, the Parthian king, having conquered Media, now charged toward Babylonia. This ancient land, with its towering ziggurats and bustling markets, was the heart of civilization. Beside it, Seleucia on the Tigris, the capital of the Seleucids, gleamed under Greek rule with its marble palaces and irrigated canals. But the Seleucids, the old masters of Persia, were drowning in a swamp of civil wars. The Seleucids, who once held dominion over Persia with their massive armies, now found their throne teetering. The young Seleucid king, Demetrius II, was locked in a power struggle with his rival, Antiochus VI. The Seleucid treasury, empty after paying heavy tributes to Rome, could no longer support its armies. Their soldiers, scattered across Syria and Anatolia, were unable to defend Mesopotamia. Babylon and Seleucia, with their high walls and Greek garrisons, were like ripe fruit waiting to be picked. Mithridates, with his light cavalry, arrived on the plains of Babylonia. The Parthians, with their recurved bows and swift horses, encircled the walls of Seleucia. The Greek guards, clad in bronze armor, fired from the towers, but a relentless rain of Parthian arrows drove them back. Mithridates laid siege to the city. The great canals of Seleucia, which once carried ships, now ran dry under the hooves of Parthian horses. After a few weeks, the city gates were breached. The Parthians, with their sun-emblazoned banners, poured into the palaces. Seleucia, the great Greek capital, had fallen. Babylon, just a short distance away, offered little resistance. Its ancient ziggurats came to life again under the shadow of Parthian flags. The Babylonian merchants, weary of the endless Seleucid wars, opened their gates to the invaders. Mithridates with his horsemen paraded through the dusty streets of Babylon. The ancient temples, filled with incense and prayer, were lit in honor of the new Persian rulers. Babylon, the heart of civilization, was Persian once more. Mithridates established his court in Seleucia. In the great marble hall with its towering columns, he placed a crown bearing the emblem of the sun upon his head. With this act, he proclaimed himself Shahanshah, King of Kings, the first to hold the title since the Achaemenids. Parthian nobles in gold-embroidered robes gathered around him. The sound of drums and horns filled Seleucia. This coronation sent a message to the world. Persia had returned in full force. The following year, in 140 BC, Demetrius II, the Seleucid king, marched on Babylonia with a fresh army to reclaim his territory. But Mithridates was ready. On the plains near Babylon, the Parthian horsemen struck the Seleucid army like a storm. Under a cloudy sky, their arrows cut down the Greek soldiers. Demetrius, in his golden armor, fought fiercely in the heart of the battle, but his horse became mired in the mud. The Parthians, with ropes and daggers, closed in and surrounded him. Demetrius, the Seleucid king, was taken captured. Instead of executing his rival, Mithridates made a stunning move. He took Demetrius to his court and married him to his own daughter, Rhodagun. This marriage was a masterstroke of politics, not love. Rhodagun, with her braided hair and Persian jewels, stood beside the captive king. This union further weakened the Seleucids and elevated the Parthians in the great game of power. With shrewd cunning, Mithridates kept his enemy alive. Mithridates' conquests continued. His horsemen rode south, capturing Susa, the ancient city of the Achaemenids. Elam, with its hills dotted with temples, fell under the Parthian banner. These cities, with their markets full of spices and textiles, rejoined the Persian realm. By capturing Babylon, Seleucia, Susa, and Elam, Mithridates proved that the Parthians were now the dominant power in the region. The crown of the King of Kings, which first shone in Seleucia, had revived the heart of Persia. The year is 140 BC. The arid deserts of northeastern Persia roared under the hooves of Parthian horses. Mithridates I, the Parthian king, having conquered Babylonia, now charged toward the wild east. The Scythians, nomadic tribes of swift horses and lethal bows, prowled the vast steppes. For years, these warriors of Iranian stock, with their deerskin tents and sharp daggers, had raided Bactria and Media. Now, Mithridates had come to tame them. The Scythians, with their ferocious riders, moved like a storm across the desert. They had no cities, no walls, only speed and fury. Scythian archers with poisoned arrows could strike down an enemy from a great distance. Mithridates, who had defeated the Greeks in Bactria and Media, now faced an enemy who fought just as he did, light, fast, and ruthless. The deserts near Merv, with their sand dunes and dry shrubs, became the battlefield for this clash. The Parthians, with their recurved bows and disciplined horses, closed in on the Scythians. The battle ignited in a swirl of desert dust. The sky filled with a storm of Parthian and Scythian arrows. The Scythian riders, with wild cries, charged the Parthian lines, but Mithridates, with cunning, dispersed his horsemen. The Parthians, using their signature tactics, would rain down arrows and then feign retreat. The Scythians, accustomed to the hunt, gave chase, only to fall into a trap. In a sandy ravine, the Parthians encircled them. Parthian daggers glinted in the setting sun. Blood flowed into the sand, and the Scythians retreated. But Mithridates did not rely on war alone. He sat down at the negotiating table with the Scythian chieftains. In cloth tents, beside a crackling fire, Parthians and Scythians talked. With shrewd diplomacy, Mithridates offered tribute to some tribes and forged alliances with others through marriage. The Scythian chiefs, with their gold necklaces and ornate daggers, pledged to Mithridates that they would no longer raid Bactria. This diplomacy pacified the east. The Parthian borders from Merv to Sistan were secured. However, the war with the Scythians was not without its cost. In 132 BC, a rumor swept through the desert. It was said that Mithridates had been wounded in one of the eastern battles. Some whispered that Scythian poison now flowed through his veins. Others claimed a dagger had found him in the dark. In his war tent, lined with deerskins, Mithridates lay under the lantern light. Parthian nobles in their gold-embroidered robes gathered around him. But Mithridates, with a will of steel, survived. The Scythians, who had hoped for his death, scattered. Mithridates returned to Merv with his exhausted but victorious horsemen. Parthian banners, bearing the emblem of the sun, danced in the desert wind. The Scythians, who had plundered Bactria for years, were now pacified under the shadow of Parthian power. These campaigns solidified Persia's eastern frontiers. With both sword and diplomacy, Mithridates had brought the wild east to its knees. Persia, from the deserts of Merv to the plains of Babylonia, was once again united.